So let's begin with our program. I want to tell you a little bit about these guys. We've got Buddy Driskill. Buddy, you want to? I think everybody probably knows Buddy anyway. But he of course is a retired ABC agent. He was born and raised in Lynchburg, Campbell County. He graduate of James Madison University in Harrisonburg, and he was a 1979 honor graduate of the Tidewater Regional Police Academy. He began his career with Virginia ABC enforcement in 1978. He served as a special agent for ABC, and then an ABC assistant special agent, and then an ABC special agent in charge. He has served duty posts in Norfolk, Stafford, and Lynchburg. He retired in 2009 as the special agent in charge of the Lynchburg Regional Office. A little later today, you will be taking a look at the model, and Buddy was instrumental in getting that model on loan from the ABC Lynchburg branch, and it's an incredible model. And Buddy and John will tell you a little bit more about it, and you'll have a chance to get up and see it close and personal. It will, after today, move into the museum. So, and we'll have it through probably November in the museum. John Wright. He lived in Roseland, Virginia, Nelson County, and he moved to the town of Amherst and actually went to the Amherst County High School. I was talking to Glenn Burley the other day on the phone, who's now a graduate here and has helped Amherst County a lot in the education field. But he was saying he was the best footballer that they had, and when you saw him coming down the field, you got out of his way or you were down. He was graduate of Virginia Tech and with a degree in business administration. He went to work for Virginia ABC Department in 1964 in enforcement, and he worked as an investigator. He was stationed in Newport News for 18 months, Charlottesville 18 months, and finally in Lynchburg for 11 years. He was promoted to assistant director, where he served for 3 years, and then director for about 17 years. He is a graduate of the Tidewater Police Academy, as is Buddy, and he is also a graduate of the FBI National Academy. He retired in May of 1995. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me we're going to start with, John Wright. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, ma'am. Hope you all will be able to hear me. I've got a severe hearing problem I've had for several years because of no ear protection when I was doing a lot of shooting. But that's not your problem, that's my problem. We're going to have some fun today. It's kind of hard to put on a program on moonshine when you've got some of the guests that we've got here today. And I'm speaking really of Henry Law. Henry Law is the son of Amos Law from over in Franklin County. Amos Law is probably one of the best known moonshiners in that area. In fact, I know he is. And Henry has seen moonshine made since he was a kid, has participated in it, and we will probably make some mistakes today in Henry's eyes because he knows what he's talking about. I know how to catch a moonshiner, he knows how to make moonshine. There is a difference. Buddy Driskill is going to come up here and talk a little while to make you familiar with what moonshine is. Some of you all already know, some of you may not. Buddy knows what moonshine is, has made, has marketed, its effects, and what have you. When Buddy gets through, I'm going to tell you a few stories about my experience when I worked in Lynchburg with catching moonshiners. And then we will, at the conclusion of the program, or before the conclusion, you're going to see some fantastic videos that Buddy has brought, including the largest still that was ever caught in the state of Virginia, 1993. It was 36 800-gallon black pot stills. That's the model over there. Virginia ABC paid $2,000 to the man that made the model for the purpose of showing that model at the Virginia State Fair, and it was a big hit. When you get the opportunity to go over and take a look at it, you'll see the intricate work that went into making it, and it is an exact model of that steel. Buddy's got some other videos that he's going to show, inclusive of some pictures of a huge peach brandy outfit down in, was it Pennsylvania County? Pennsylvania County. Also up on the stage here is Santa Claus Dan McCulloch. Dan McCulloch was in charge of the vice squad in Lynchburg for a number of years, and I worked very close with him. He ended up coming to ABC, had a disagreement with the Lynchburg PD, came over to ABC. He is probably the best undercover man that ABC has ever had. If he made up his mind to catch you, you were going to be caught. He's a close friend. Sitting beside him is Caroll Massie. Caroll Massie lived up on Little Tiny, and he is the fastest man I've ever seen leave a steel. I jumped him up there one day, jumped two of them. One of them didn't run. Caroll lit out and he went up the mountain. A horse couldn't have caught him. I heard him break brush for a half a mile. I just stood there. Back then I could run a little bit, but it wasn't any use of me trying to run. I went back that night with a warrant and got him. And I think that's the only time he was ever arrested for making liquor. But he and I had been friends for years. I ran into him up in Woodson years ago. He was up there to get some heat, and he looked at me and he smiled, and I said, "You know who I am?" He said, "I know who you are." And I said, "Yeah, I know who you are too." But he and I have been friends a long time. Buddy, if you will come up here and talk a little bit about moonshine, and then I'll get into telling some stories. Buddy Driskill.
John asked me to just make sure that everybody in the room has an understanding of what moonshine is, and like John said, Henry Law here has probably seen more moonshine than Carter Scott Pills, but anyway,
both these guys here.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
But anyway, moonshine is a clear liquid of distilled spirits made unaged. A lot of times it's sold and consumed within days of being manufactured. The proof is generally 80 to 90 proof, and what makes it moonshine is the fact that there wasn't a license to manufacture it, and there was no tax paid on it, which was a lot of the motivation in the job that we did, other than the criminality of being a felony to make liquor without a license. It was also no tax being paid on it. So there was a lot of revenue lost to both the state government and the federal government. Virginia has the third highest state tax on liquor in the country, behind Oregon and Washington State. So it's a lot of money lost when it's sold. The process to make moonshine is really two things: fermentation and distillation. The fermentation process is where you begin. The fermentation process is forming a substance called mash. Mash is really pretty simple. It's water, cornmeal, sugar, and yeast. Now, each moonshiner had their own recipe, but basically that was the ingredients that were in it. The other way you could ferment was with fruit. Liquor from fruit is called brandy, and that commanded a much higher price than the sugar liquor. But to make brandy, you had to grind fruit, generally peaches or apples. But I have seen it made with blackberries, fox grapes, wild cherries, damsons. But it's a lot of work. It's very labor intensive. To fill a 55-gallon barrel with fermenting blackberries is a lot of work. But anyway, after that process, the fermentation takes place. The alcohol that is made from the mash is generally 5 to 10% alcohol by volume. I equated it to beer. Once the fermentation process takes place, they have a short window of several days to distill it. Distillation is the heat-requiring process in which the mash is actually heated to the point of evaporation, which for alcohol is 172 degrees. At that point, the still is what they call capped, where the vapor is trapped, run into what they call a doubler or a thumper keg, where the impurities that come out with the steam in the mash drops in the barrel. The steam will come out of the thumper keg into what's called a condenser. A condenser is generally a swirled coil, copper coil, sitting in a box of water. The water has to be continually pumped into the cooling box to condense the vapor back into liquid form, coming out in the bottom in a catch bucket, and there you have your liquor. So the process is not simple. I've probably been on 50 plus still raids, watched them make it, talked to them about making it, seen a lot about it, but I don't think I could go in the woods and make liquor if I had to. It's not easy. But anyway, that process is generally experienced by all the moonshiners. Now, some of them, like I said, will have their own recipe for mash, and will do it in their own certain way, but generally that's the way it's done.
Talk a little bit about the market and other products.
Once the liquor's made, they put it in what's called a proofing barrel. Proofing barrel is generally another 55-gallon barrel. I've seen them with 2 sticks across the top with a 5-gallon bucket, plastic bucket. The bucket will have holes in it. They'll fill the bucket up with cotton and rocks. And when the liquor comes out of the catch bucket, they'll dump it in the proofing barrel, because the first part of the run on a liquor still is generally very high proof. It can be 120, 140 proof. The end of the run, they told me they call it low wine, is almost like a liqueur. It's maybe 30, 40 proof. So when they dump all that in the barrel, they're dumping 30 proof liquor in with 140 proof liquor, and that's how they generally stir it around and get their 80, 90 proof liquor. The proofing barrel will have a garden hose on it, and they will literally turn the hose down and fill the 1-gallon milk jugs up one at a time. And generally it's sold in a case. The case is 6 gallons, and When I was working, they were getting $30 to $50 a case for it, and it's marketed to what we call shot houses and nip joints. Shot houses and nip joints are places. It could be somebody's kitchen, it could be somebody's house, it could be a clubhouse, it could be just a place where people hang out, play cards, and it's sold by the shot. They'll take a Dixie cup and sell it to you for $1. They'll sell it to you by the pint. They'll sell it to you by the gallon. And we've raided nip joints and shot houses all over the state of Virginia. Some of the liquor went as far as Philadelphia, Baltimore, down south, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Charlotte, all over the place, literally up the East Coast. The demand was always great for it. I never understood the attraction in it. The people I've talked to that I've arrested actually prefer the taste of bootleg liquor. They don't want store-bought liquor. They want, the demand was always there. And I used to always tell people that, you know, they're not making it and pouring it on the ground. You know, they're meeting the demand. That liquor did not stay on the ground long before it was hauled away. The vehicles that they used were generally large vans, Suburbans, pickups with camper shells on it, highly weighted to support the weight with shocks, so you couldn't tell that it was loaded going down the road. I've seen 500-600 gallons in the back of a Suburban, 800 gallons, you know, and they would go and sell them to these what I call joints. So that it didn't stay on the ground long. And like I said, the unaged, a lot of these people were drinking liquor that was 3 days old, a week old, a month old. There's no bouquet, congeners, or anything in this liquor. It's not soaked in a barrel for 10 years and marketed like that way. It's very raw and very, I don't know how they drink it, but they do.
Pure grain, no additives, no preservatives.
No.
Pure grain, all straight
Yeah.
from the farm.
Right.
Malted barley, corn. They just can't get any better.
Right.
Henry, anytime you want to say anything, just step up back to the mic so
Well,
they
I was
can hear you.
interested in what you said about the vehicles. It's funny, those vehicles, we had springs on them, they'd be straight up in the air. If you rode down the road, you couldn't hardly drive it. But when you put the liquor in it, it would come down level. Like Buddy was saying, then you never knew you had the liquor on it. That was pretty strange.
One thing that we would listen for if we were following the vehicle, even if it was running level, because of the weight, the tires would sink. If you've ever seen a dump truck or something that's loaded, those tires, if he's going fast enough, the weight will make those tires sink. And we've figured it out that way.
We were pumping out 12 to 13,000 gallons a month, every month after month. So we had this whole distribution ring set up. Like we go in, they'd have as many, I don't know if y'all knew this, he'd have as many as 20, 30 pots at all times. We'd have 12 here, 8 here, 10 here. A guy may even have one in his building. And Daddy handled it all. When we ran the liquor, we'd take to storage buildings and we'd store the liquor in the basement of people's houses, barns, whatever we could find. Everybody was getting a little piece of the action. Then we had a bunch of cars and vans set up, like Buddy's talking about, where we started distributing out. It would go up north, D.C., Philadelphia, New York, Danville, you name it. In the city it was going to. And it was just a regular run, just constant, you know, just rock and roll. If you had the liquor, they was going to buy it. Just simple as that. I remember one time we had 700 cases. It was summertime. In summertime, you have a whole lot more liquor around because every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the country could make it because it doesn't have four-wheel drives. We had four-wheel drive trucks, cattle trucks, you know, Jeeps, cars, you name it. We had a whole arsenal of vehicles to handle all this. A lot of guys didn't have that. But summertime comes, they could take their wife's car and just drive off the side of the road and make a little bit of liquor. And it would be more liquor than, and it would slow down. Their sales would slow down. Come wintertime, they couldn't do that. So it wouldn't be as much liquor. We'd get a higher price for it. But I remember one summer we had 700 cases in the basement of the house, and that's 6 gallons to a case. 2 weeks later, it was gone.
The pots over here in this display, when we raided it January 6th, we've been watching it for a couple of weeks, going in there every day to check it for activity, dropping off, walking about a mile or two across Smith Mountain. get down and watch it. But they would, in the wintertime, they will insulate those pots. I've seen them just take regular house insulation and wrap them around it to help with the fermentation process. Because when it's fermented in the summertime, I've seen a pot ferment in 3 days. And if you look at a pot that's fermented, if you took the burlap off and looked down in it, it would look like it's boiled. It's what they call working. And it would actually hiss.
Sizzling like bacon.
And once it stops, it'll clear off a little bit. And like I said, they've got that wonder, which worked to our benefit, because I knew that in the next 2 or 3 days they had to come in and run this, or it would go back and it would lose its alcohol content.
Y'all were good about that too. I remember one time we thought the law had found a steel sight virus, and so I went down and I watched it for 2 days. I laid up on the road where I could see both directions. Never saw a thing. Well, these guys had been in and checked it. They knew when it's going to be ready. They know when it's going to work off. As good at it as we are. So we decided, okay, we're going to go and run it. Didn't see anything. But I said, I'm going to hire a shotgun man today. I just had a bad feeling that they was going to be there. So we hired a shotgun man, put him up on the hill. We never took guns into steel sites. That's taboo. These guys respected us for that, and we respected them. You don't take guns in, you know, and it just makes it safe for everybody. But anyway, we went in that morning. The beer was ready. Sure enough, they had us surrounded. So the shotgun man was up on the hill. Just about to crack of day, I heard that shotgun go off, and all the pellets started raining down on my head. I turned to my buddy, he started running down the creek. I clipped back up toward the house because we were getting power off of this guy's house. And the electrical lines run to it. I knew that electrical line would be enough for y'all arrested. So I'm going up through there, and the kids are out, and I'm saying, unplug that cord. The jump man was coming down. He was loaded up with heavy coats and gloves on. I just stripped down to his t-shirt. So I get on away from the guy. I run and get away, and they caught my buddy. He went down the creek and caught his butt down about 1,000 yards.
Yeah, a raid was always pretty exciting.
It was a rush.
Sometimes, in the case of that brandy still, that peach brandy still over there, I'd been in the woods for 30 consecutive days before it finally rained. And I never liked the brandy still because if the sugar liquor, you could about tell when they were going to run it, but the brandy still, fermented fruit, it could sit there crusted over for 6 months.
Once that one's ready.
Yeah, they might be like a Quaker, just when the spirit moved and they decided to make liquor or something. I hated it. But anyway, it was 30 consecutive days before we finally caught that thing.
I remember I asked some old timers about these guys. I said, how do you get away when you get raided? You would have thought I'd ask them how to do brain surgery. They wouldn't tell me a thing, nothing. So the first time I got run, the guy, he was talking about a rush. It's a rush, believe you me. It was just about crack of day. The sun was coming up, and we'd had trouble with the pump that morning. So right when the liquor started running, it was just getting daylight. We were propped up against the steel, trying to warm up a little bit like me and John here. This guy comes around, it's like slow motion. You see him coming, but it patches and all. You see him coming, but I don't know if that split seconds he can't move, he's fast. He comes up, and this guy's got nerves. He grabs both of us at the same time. Not one of us, both of us. Around the neck, calling you under arrest, you're under arrest. We go scrambling, you're carrying on, boom. If anything goes, except you can't raise your hand and hit one. You know, as far as getting away, they know that, you know, that's we're gonna try to get away. So I broke loose and my partner fell to the ground. And I heard my partner hollering because Ada came up on top of him and hit him. My buddy told him, no, everything's good. So I went out through the woods a little ways and hit trees, you know, big trees everywhere. And I'm thinking, oh my God, man, it's gonna be one of y'all hid behind that tree and get me sure as the world. But anyway, that day I realized how these guys set up a raid from that day on. They're pretty damn sharp. What they would do, they had these jump men. So they'd set up a steel site, like this table was a steel site. 99% of the time, we'd be set up with the creek down below it. First instinct, if you get raided, is to run away from whatever the fear is, you know, whatever. If somebody's got a gun, you run away from it. They come down, they send a jump man in. Your first instinct is to run away. That's wrong. That's the worst thing you could ever do. About 1,000 yards down, you'll set these guys on a stump, waiting for you to come down at 1,000 yards. After you run that distance, you got nothing left in you. But after that day they raided me, I realized what they were doing. So I learned to come around. When that jump man came in, I'd go around through a steel. I can tell you all this now. I didn't want y'all to know it then.
We knew you were doing that, Henry.
That's why they never caught me. So I'm going around one time, going around the still, and I'm headed up, and the agent's going this way because he knows I'm supposed to be going that way. He looked at me just as funny, and I looked at him. He's like, "You're not supposed to be going that way." So I knew when I got up that way, if he turned on me, it'd be nobody but me and him. All I would have to do was outrun him. If I went the other way, you caught, and that's the way their plan was. I've seen as many as 3 junk men come in at a time. 3 junk men. That makes it tough to get away, but you always got to get back the way they came in. If you did, you got a good shot of getting away.
We always had a raid team and a catch team. And I've done both. The catch
Takes
team
a lot of
is
effort, that raid team.
catch team is down below the still, chasing them in the direction that you want them to go. Because nobody ever stood there when I came to the still site and shook my hand and said, "Hey, how you doing?" You know, it's the fight or flight syndrome. If they're not fighting, they're flighting. They're running. And I've seen them jump 5 strands of barbed wire in one leap, and I have to stop and climb over it. I mean, it's just the
I've seen them freeze too.
the adrenaline kicks in, and you'd be surprised what you can do.
They run me jumped us one time. It was on 2 propane tanks. The guy I was, and I saw him coming, and I hit it on out. And they caught him still holding that propane tank. He still had it in his hand. Scared him to death. He couldn't move. He just froze right on the spot. Don't have to chase him.
But it was generally a chase. Very little fighting, very little gunplay. Nothing like you might see in the movies. They just looking to get away.
All right, buddy. Before I get started, there's a couple people here in the audience I want to recognize. One of them is the grandson of Colonel John Pugh. You want to stand up? Colonel Pugh was an ABC investigator for years here in Amherst County and well respected. And also we've got the grandson of Steve Tolley, Chuck Tolley back there in the back. Steve Tolley was an ATF agent. He was a state police prior to being a federal agent. And I worked with him in Lynchburg. Great officer. All right, I'm going to ask you all a question. How many of you all have seen the Moonshine program on television? Just one? More? Okay. I hope you didn't believe what you saw. It's the biggest bunch of BS that they ever put on television.
No comment on my end. No comment.
Now, about 2 years into the program, I got a call from this lady who was with the Moonshine. She was with it from New York. She wanted to come down here and interview me. And she said, "Can you get an agent and Mark Stevenson, who was a reporter from over in Franklin County, to attend?" I said, "Sure." Morris and I were friends and didn't have any trouble getting a retired agent. So we met them down in Gretna. They pulled in there with 2 big long black stretch limousines. You never seen so much equipment come out of 2 cars in your life. They came in the building and said it was going to take us about 30 minutes to get all this stuff set up. I said, all right. So about 30 minutes later, this lady comes in and she said, "We're ready to start." And J. Calhoun was the agent, and he said, "Well, how much you planning on paying us?" She said, "We ain't planning on paying you anything." He said, "Well, there won't be no interview." She said, "Well, I don't know." She said, "Wait a minute." So she disappeared. She came back. And she said, "And how about $500 a piece?" He said, "No, that ain't enough." So she said, "I'll be back." She left again, and this guy comes in there. And lo and behold, he says, "How about $250?" And Calhoun said, "Hell, it's been already off at $500. You coming in here with $250? You think we're crazy?" He said, I didn't know you'd been off for 500. So he left. She comes back again and she said, well, I just got off the phone with New York. And they've authorized $1,000 apiece. Calhoun said, well, that's really not enough, but we'll do it for $1,000 apiece. So we had to sign all these papers and stuff. And I know Henry's been through that. So anyway, we start the interview. And I talked to him probably close to an hour about Franklin County and my experiences with what went on in Franklin County, all the way back to the great moonshine conspiracy. And I'm sure Henry's aware of what happened back then. So she said, well, Mr. Wright, I got one more question I want to ask you. And I said, yes, ma'am, what is that? And she said, well, what do you think of the moonshine program? I said, I don't like it. She said, well, why don't you like it? I said, because it's a bunch of BS. I said, it makes ABC look stupid. I said, those two that you got out there running around supposedly making liquor, if that had been factual, ABC or ATF would have called them the first week. And it would have been over with. And I said, had I still been the director in Richmond, it never would have happened. I wouldn't have put the two agents out there, and these were two actual agents. And they act like they couldn't track the elephant in a snowstorm. I said, no, I didn't like it. She said, all right. Well, they had intended on using the interview. But after I said what I did, no interview was ever put on the app, I can tell you that.
Just floor.
Yeah, right. All right, I'm going to tell you some stories. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. Buddy was talking about brandy. At one time, this area was well known for its brandy. We had three major violators. Reuben Thompson over in Nelson County, Clarence Muller up at Massie's Mill, and Odie Coffee at Massie's Mill. They were big time. They had gotten out of the business prior to me getting down here to Lynchburg. I wished I'd had the opportunity to work on some of it. We had one violator still making liquor in Amherst County, brandy in Amherst County when I got here. And he was very slick. In fact, that was his nickname, Slick. And I'm talking about Alfred Davis. Alfred Davis, the reason he was so slick, he did not sell his liquor locally. Most all the brandy he made went north to Culpeper, where he had a distributor up there that bought it and further distributed it on north. Well, somebody got mad with somebody. I don't know whether he got mad with Alfred or he got mad with the distributor up in Culpeper. But they called ABC in Lynchburg and said, hey, you all got a guy down there selling a lot of brandy up here. Well, who is it? His name's Alfred Davis. ABC had not heard of it. ATF had not heard of it. ABC and ATF worked together real close. The only difference was ATF made a hell of a lot more money than we did. And they got paid for overtime, which we didn't get. But anyway, we started looking for Alfred. And we looked high and low. We couldn't find him. We could not find him. I got a call from Malin Bryant, who was the sheriff at the time in Amherst County. He said, John, I got a man and his two sons in the office. And said, they got a gallon of brandy that they found while they were trespassing bow hunting up at Nail. Are you interested in coming and talking to them? I said, I'll be right there. So I hauled tail over here to Amherst, and they told me what they had found. They said it's a big still well, and hundreds of gallons of brandy on the ground covered up in the top. I said, exactly where is it? They told me. So I called the two ATF agents, Dick Woodward and Steve Tolley, and by this time it had gotten up in the night. That night was so foggy you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. We went up there and dropped off, Dick Woodward and I. Steve dropped us off, and we went in there behind what was Alfred Davis's trailer, and we found the still right where they said it was. And we watched it for 2 days, and nothing happened. Alfred had left home. He didn't come back for 2 days. We got a search warrant and an arrest warrant eventually. Went in there with a search warrant. Of course, we already found the still. He had put a water line underground from his trailer back to the still, which was about 100 yards in a pine thicket behind the trailer. He had two, about I would say 500-gallon stainless steel vats full of apple pumice that he had not run. Those vats came from Lynchburg Dairy, that was surplus. They'd sold them and Alfred bought them, and he was putting his apples in that. Alfred eventually came home and we arrested him. We took him in federal, took him before a magistrate, a federal magistrate. And it being his first time caught, he got probation. He didn't stop making brandy. He moved over to Big Island, and we tried to get probable cause over there to search his place. We had information he was making in a house over there, but we didn't have enough probable cause to get a search warrant. So I assumed that he made it on until he died. He had one individual work for him a little bit, an alcoholic by the name of Red Clark. Red Clark made a fatal mistake. He stole some brandy from Alfred. Red Clark came down with the flu. And Alfred, being the nice guy he was, he made him some soup. Red Clark ate the soup. He was dead the next morning. No autopsy was ever performed. You didn't mess up with Alfred, he would hurt you. He was a different character from what this man is right here. I never had any fear of the laws. It was a game. Sometimes we won, sometimes they won. But like he said, they didn't go in the woods to hurt you. And we didn't go in the woods to hurt them. But Alfred was a different bird. He would hurt you. I was also involved in catching two brothers that I'm sure most of you all know or heard of. Ed and Kai Cash, who lived up western part of the county off of Kings Creek. They lived up there beyond where Caroll Massie lived, in a little log cabin. No electricity, no running water or anything. They made liquor off and on for years, and when I first came down to Lynchburg, they told me, said, see if you can catch them. Well, I went up there and I looked and I found a bunch of places where they had made, but couldn't find them. But I'd go by the house and talk to them, and they'd always want to know, do you want to drink a cold coffee? What cold coffee was mash. And they always had it there. I never did drink any of it. Sometimes I would take them a pint of liquor. And I'd take a drink of liquor with them, so I didn't want any mash. And I told them, I said, you know, y'all gonna keep on messing with this cold coffee. And you're gonna put it in a still. You're gonna get caught. Oh no, Mr. Wright, we just drank your cold coffee. I said, okay. They had an old hound dog, Mr. Brown. And I always took Mr. Brown a dog biscuit. He and I became good friends. And I went up there one day, my partner and I, and they weren't at home, which was unusual. They didn't have a car. They usually you could find them at the house anytime. They weren't home. Mr. Brown wasn't there. So there was a little creek down there, King's Creek, which eventually runs into Little Piney. Has native trout in it. So I walked down there to tow booth. I said, I'm gonna walk down the creek and see if I see any fish. I like to fish. So I walked down there and I looked, didn't see any fish. I looked up across the creek there and I see a faint path. I said, that wasn't supposed to be here. So I went back and got Booth. I said, lock your vehicle up, we're gonna check this path out. We go back down there and we cross the creek and start on around the mountain. I started smelling wood smoke. I told Booth, I said, I believe we got a still right here. Went a little bit further and I see Mr. Brown laying up on the side of the path. Just laying out on his side, about half asleep. I got on up a little bit closer to him and held the dog biscuit out and his old tail flopped up and down a couple times in the leaves. He never got up. I walked on up, gave him the dog biscuit. He just laid there and ate it. I went on around a little bit 100 yards further where I could see over in the hollow. I could see the still. I see both of them. I kept on walking. I walked right in on them before they saw me. I was closest to them as I am to Interlock. And Ed was sitting on a stump. He never got up. Kyle made it like he was going to run. He made about 4 steps, and I said, come on back here, Kyle. I don't feel like chasing you. And so he did. He turned and came on back. I said, what did I tell y'all about that cold coffee? It's going to get you in trouble. I said, now I got to arrest you. He said, you're going to have to cut the steel up? I said, yeah, we'll have to cut your steel up. Kyle said, will you let me cut it up? I said, well, if you want to cut it up, that's your steel. I'm going to have to destroy it. So he took an axe and he cut it up. Came over here to court. I told the Commonwealth attorney, I said, you know, there's no danger in those two. And he said, well, does it bother you if we just put them on probation? I said, that's fine. Do what you need to do. I said, they ain't got no money. And putting them in jail would kill them. I said, just put them on probation. So they did. And we remained friends after that. I go back to see them. We talk and laugh about them getting caught. We had no problems. I'll tell you about one other character that I dealt with over in Nelson County. This was Massie Thompson. Massie Thompson was the brother of Reuben Thompson. Big Bradley man. Massie had the habit of calling me mostly on Sunday afternoon when I was trying to look at a football game. And he would say, Wright, you need to come over here. I got some information for you. Well, I was afraid not to go. I was always hopeful that he was going to come up with something that was worth something. So I'd go up there. I always take him something to drink because that's what he wanted. And I'd go up there, and I know at least 3 times he would say, you know, some son of bitches come over here and put a steel on my place. I said, he did? Yeah. I said, where is it, Massie? He's up at Hollow Hill behind the house. I said, well, let's go up there and see it. We go up there, and it'd be a steel valve, about a 15, 20 gallon little copper outfit, a couple barrels of mash. He said, I don't know who in the world would have done something like this, but I don't want it here, I want you to cut it up. I said, I can handle that. So I cut it up. I know it happened 3 times. Well, it was heel steel. It was heel steel. But he was worried that I had found it. And I was going to catch him out. So he turned his own steel in. About one time he turned it in. We was coming on back, I was driving Bronco, we were coming on back down the old road, getting over there and had to pass the barn. We got close to the barn. He said, whoa, 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 right here, stop, stop. I thought he saw a snake or something, so I stopped. I said, what do you want? He said, whoever put that damn steel up there said, put a big sheet of copper in my barn. And I want you to get it over here. I don't want it on my property. I said, that's fine, you get it. He went in there and got it, threw it up in the back of the Bronco. I brought it on home, put 2 roofs on 2 dog houses. He was a character. The devil was one. I guess the hardest one I ever had to catch was somebody that Henry Law knows. I think he knows. Louis Ayers.
Oh yeah, I know Lewis.
I figured you did.
He helped y'all a lot, didn't he?
Lewis was pretty swift of foot. Got away from me 2 or 3 times. Well, I got a call one time, and I'm not going to tell you who the call came from, but they said, hey.
Don't tell us.
No. I said, the caller said, Lewis is going to make some brandy in his backyard. I said, his backyard? He said, yep, right in his backyard. Gonna make blackberry brandy. I said, all right. So my partner and I, Lewis Booth, we go over there, and we find a little still in the weeds behind his house. There was a black pot still in the woods that was abandoned, but we found a little copper still, probably 15, 20 gallons in the woods, in the little field, grown up about to your waist off the end of his yard. So we started watching it. A hard place to watch. You had to go in there before light. You couldn't go over there until after dark. So we went in there for 14 straight days and laid in the woods and watched Louis Ayers. Sun come up in the morning, the door would open, Louis and his wife and 2 kids would come out, go across the road into a huge field, blackberry field, and pick blackberries. At lunchtime they would come back, dump what they had picked in this barrel out in the yard, and some of them would go in the basement, and I assume knew later that they would dump it in the barrel in the basement too. They'd eat lunch, they'd go back, and they would stay till supper time. 14 days, or 13 days. On the 14th day, Louis came out and looked all up in the air. He walked right straight toward us and picked up that little old steel and took it back and set up 2 cinder blocks. I told my partner Louis Booth, I said, he's going to do it today. He set the steel up and he hollered in there to his wife, said, bring me some dough, put a cap on this thing. She came over with the dough, he capped it up after he poured about 3 5-gallon buckets of blackberries in it. He capped it up. And a little boy came up to the house and he said, son, take that dog and check around. Well, the kid took the dog and went up the road, cut across the field that we'd come in on, and that dog picked that track up And he followed us like he was on a string. He came right straight to us. And he got about close from here to the door over there, and he stopped, the dog did, and started barking and bayed us. And that kid walked up, we landed on the ground, flat on the ground. The kid walked up and saw us. And he said, Daddy, the damn wall's out here. Well, I jumped up and I ran straight for Lewis. And Lewis had on a pair of tennis shoes. And he turned and he kicked the steel off of the cinder blocks. The cap came off, blackberry juice running all over the place. And I got within about 20 yards of him, and I told him, I said, Lewis, ain't no use you running. You can run if you want to, but your ass is going to be arrested. So he stopped. And he came back, and I cuffed him and put him on the ground. Don't usually cuff him, but Lewis was kind of a smart Ellie, and I didn't care for him. His wife came out, she was raising hell too, so cuffed her. Cuffed both of them.
Should give that dog a biscuit.
Yeah. And I said, Lewis, I want to search your house. I ain't searching the house without no search warrant. I said, that's all right, we can get the search warrant. So I contacted the Bedford Sheriff Department and I said, y'all get me a search warrant down here. It took them about 45 minutes to get down there with the search warrant. We searched the house. I found some moonshine in the house, sugar liquor. Found some marijuana in there. Charged him with that too. Went to court in Bedford, and I don't know why Lewis made the decision he made, but he decided he wanted the judge to hear the case instead of a jury, Judge Sweeney. And he hired a Davis from over in Franklin County to represent him, a high-profile attorney. We testified. Judge Sweeney gave him 3 years, the max. And Davis jumped up and screamed. He said, this is a travesty of justice. He said, if this was in Franklin County, he probably would have just gotten probation, if anything. Judge Sweeney looked down at Davis and he said, Mr. Davis, I remind you, you're not in Franklin County today. You're in Bedford County. I said 3 years. Well, Lewis wanted to make a deal, contacted me, wanted to give me information on Henry Law. Now I'm telling this because Lewis Ayers is dead. This kid that came out there and caught us in the woods is dead. He got killed down in Alabama. Somebody shot him down in Alabama. But he was very, very hard to catch. Now,
I've got affidavits where he testified against us.
Sir?
I got affidavits where Lewis
Testified against you all?
against us. Yeah.
He would do that. He would do anything to help himself.
Yeah. He went to grand jury with me. He didn't have to get on his stand because you know how it is. You go to grand jury, you're convicted. 99% of the time, you're
Right.
guilty. So.
Right.
But we knew he did it.
Well, it's mentioned liquor coming into Lynchburg. When I worked with McCulloch in Lynchburg on the vice squad, there was a lot of moonshine coming into Lynchburg. Being brought in primarily by 2 people, a black dude by the name of B. Burns from down in Campbell County. B was getting his liquor from Franklin County, might have been from the Laws, I'm not sure. I know we followed him with the plane out there one time to Franklin County, and he got a load of liquor and brought it back. B was, it was hard not to like him. He was very, very friendly. Big guy. He was probably 6'3", 240. Never had any problems with him, thank goodness. But we caught him several times. And that was a white guy. I think he was also getting his liquor out of Franklin County. John Mason. You know John Mason?
And then the Mason guys.
Yeah. Steve Tolley, Chuck's dad, if he got after you, he was gonna catch you. He went down there and watched John Mason by himself. And the night, this particular night, he'd been down there a bunch of times. But this particular night, 2 cars came in there and they put off liquor. But Steve couldn't get to the cars before they left. They put the liquor on a trailer, a farm trailer that was hooked to a tractor. And John gets on the tractor and takes it on back on the farm, and Steve ran along behind him. He got back that way, he was going to put the liquor, and Steve jumped him and arrested him. And he got in touch with me through Appomattox State Police. He said, Steve Tolley's down John Mason's. He needs help down there. He's got him under arrest with a load of liquor. So I got Dick Woodward, the other federal agent, we went down there. And it was cold that night. It was down about 20 degrees. And we got down there and went back in the woods and we found them and destroyed the liquor except for a sample the ATF kept. And Tolley said, well, we're going to have to seize this tractor. We're not going to seize the trailer part, we want the tractor. But Dick Woodward drove that tractor back to Lynchburg. It's probably about 20 or 25 miles. Got back, the sun was coming up. And he had to stop several times and get in the car with me so he could warm up. I mean, it was brutal cold that night. So we got John Mason. All right, let me see. Not that it really has a whole lot to do with anything, but when I went to work for ABC in May of 1964, there were 47 ABC investigators. Today, of those 47 ABC investigators, there's only 5 of us still living. 5.